Welcome to Doc and Hachi. I'm the Doc.
I'm Hachi.
And today we are doing our immune boosting webinar on immune boosting supplements. Boost. So as far as supplements go, we're going to go over some specifics today, but it's very important to go to your doctor and get checked out to see which ones will be the best ones for you. It's impossible to say over the internet which one you would benefit from most or which combination you would benefit from the most, but I know, it's weird.
If I do a Google search on what's best for me, that might not be best for me.
Exactly, and there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of accurate information that's a little bit off about immune boosting nutrition. Like everybody knows, for example, like vitamin C. Well, it's not as simple as just taking vitamin C. And we're going to go over that today. So what can happen is when you're just listening to random pieces and trying to put it all together, it's not always a good thing, because when you don't look at the body as a whole system, which it is, if you don't treat it like a whole system, if you treat it like a machine with parts and you're only looking at the one section, you could miss things, which is not ideal. So as far as this goes, so where do we start? Well, we start with the body doesn't have an immune system. Your body is an immune system. So your body is more than the sum of its parts. And what happens is that, again, some people are very narrow thinking, and they don't really realize that you have to look at the whole body, but it all works together. And when you ask someone, well, what do you think your immune system is? They blank, because they've never really thought about that. Like before you met me and learned everything you learned, and you already knew quite a bit before you met me, what did you think the immune system was?
Well, certainly, before I became educated in stuff, meeting Janine and then doing my own diet certification courses, if you asked me what the immune system was, I would say it's your white blood cells. Right,
and that would be probably the standard answer, and it's not wrong, but it's not complete.
Right. It's like if you asked me what a car was, and I said it's, wheels.
Right.
Yeah, it's wheels, but it's a lot more than just wheels. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're not going to go into a ton of depth on like organs and T cells, B cells, etc., because that's a little much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we could do a whole thing on just like individual cells. And you don't need to do that.
Well, yeah, and our goal is to give you enough information that you can make intelligent decisions, not to turn you into a biochemist overnight.
Exactly, and you're not supposed to be doctors. You're supposed to go to a doctor. But if you understand a little bit more about it, you can parse out, especially these quick fixes and like, oh, my aunt said, and like that kind of stuff.
My Uncle Roy raised 350 pounds, went on a diet and lost 2 pounds.
Right. So
gives me all my diet advice.
Yes, and that's honestly what happens a lot. Yeah. So I'm gonna go over a couple of the organs involved to kind of give you a better idea of just how big it is. But one of the main immune organs you have is actually your thymus. So your thymus gland is a gland, and it produces lymphocytes, and lymphocytes is a fancy word for the immune cells. And lymphocytes can turn into different types of them. So they can turn into the ones that create antibodies, and they can turn into the ones that attack. They are like a master, and they kind of differentiate is the technical term. So the thymus is what really makes most of them. It's an endocrine gland. You also have your spleen, which also has a lot to do with that. It has a lot to do with lymph. Most people know about it for lymph. Because a lot of people think the spleen's a useless organ, but you don't have useless organs. We didn't evolve to have superfluous organs.
Except maybe a brain.
Oh, no. That's, yeah.
Since so few people use it, it's superfluous.
Exactly. But so the spleen is good for lymph and for blood, and it helps make antibodies. So you need those. Then you've got your long bones, so your skeletal bones. So it's the longer bones, not like the little carpal bones and stuff like that, but like the longer bones, like the femur and stuff.
This is the humorous part of the conversation.
No.
He got it.
See, and that's why he comes, for the comedy. So the long bones are where you have bone marrow. So if anyone's heard of leukemia, leukemia is very bad. It's bone marrow cancer. And what can happen is that those people get very sick and the survival rate's not super great, because when you can't make the immune cells you need, which are a lot of them are made and stored in the long bones, the marrow, you have no defense, so everything can get you. Oh, hey, Lucas. So the bones. So we've just covered the thymus gland, which most people don't even know what that is, the spleen, which you didn't think you needed, and your bones. That's not usually what people think of when you're thinking of immune system, and we're not even done. Because another component of your immune system is your digestion. So your stomach is technically part of your immune system. Because your stomach, that's the whole point of having stomach acid, aside from all the other benefits, is that stomach acid is so acidic, it helps to break food down, but also high acid environments are very hard for pathogens to survive in. So it's your first line of defense. That's why, like, if we both eat something with like salmonella, maybe I get sick because my stomach acid isn't as high as his, and his stomach acid is higher, so then he can
much higher.
Much higher. And it's not, I'm using it as an example because it's true. Well, when we have food poisoning, I usually have much more severe reactions, and I think it's because my stomach acid is a little bit lower. And what happens is that my body's like, oh, ooh. and it can be really bad. His acid tends to be higher, so he tends to kill most of the pathogens, but then sometimes a couple will get through, but then he'll have like the lower GI stuff the next couple of days as his body's clearing it out. But so stomach acid is one of your number one defenses. Another intestinal thing is your actual intestines. They have gut flora, as people have heard about and we've talked about a little bit, but the various microbes that live inside your own gut, they're there to help protect you and fight off bad guys too. And then your liver is there, and it's for detoxification and creating enzymes, which are part of everything else. And then the biggest immune, if you will, is actually your skin. It's your first barrier of everything, because your skin is what protects you. That's one of the reasons why you want to make sure your skin is intact, aka no cuts and things like that. So there you go. So that is a more complete view of your immune system. So that's why when someone says, oh, I know the one thing that the one thing that you need is X. Guaranteed not to be the one thing you need.
Probably wrong.
And that's why we're going to spend a lot of time talking about things. But again, this is the last time I'm going to say it before the end, but that is why you need to go to your doctor. And I would say a holistic alternative medicine doctor, like somebody like me who does nutrition response testing, or acupuncture or chiropractic, people that know a little bit more about nutrition and a holistic view of the body. Because we're not just going to be like, take vitamin C, take zinc, because it doesn't work like that. And it doesn't matter how much zinc I give you. That's why, like, some people will take zinc and they're like, oh my God, it's a miracle cure. Because the only thing maybe they were missing was zinc, but then you take it and it's like, but I still got sick. And it's like, well, maybe something's wrong with your liver, maybe your spleen, maybe your thymus gland.
All of you.
Maybe all of them, exactly. Bonus.
So speaking, I'm the ancestral health
So
expert. So if you stop and think about this, so some people listening to this might think this is absolutely revolutionary. Why have I never heard this before? But you don't hear of it because our modern medical approach is to take things apart in systems and address systems and symptoms one at a time. But if you step back and you think environmentally, if you were going to create a creature and send it out into the wild where it could get infections through a cut in the skin, it could get infections through respiration, it could get infections through digestion, that every one of those things would need to have some kind of defensive portion to it. And if you really want to make a good system, it would be a redundant system where the digestion, the epidermal, and the respiratory and internal immune systems would all work in conjunction with each other, so that however the pathogen got in, all of them would have a role in getting it out again. It kind of makes sense.
So yeah, if you only had one system and it failed, you're dead. If you think about it, back in the day, we didn't have. That's one of the reasons why people are always like, oh well, the only reason people are getting sick is because they're living longer. Well, they're living longer because we have
They don't get
antibiotics and stuff like that.
Because they survive getting sick.
Exactly. Yeah. No, back in the day, that's why, like in movies, they'll pour like booze on the cut because they know that's antiseptic with the alcohol. That's the whole point of alcohol. But if they knew that if they could kill the infection at the skin, hopefully it wouldn't be turned into septicemia. So, you know, that's why you need to have more than one system, and it's best if all are working in conjunction together. Optimally, exactly. So
how do we do that, Doc?
How do we do that? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about antibodies and antigens, some more slightly scientific stuff, just because everybody's all concerned with COVID testing, and we just did COVID antibody testing at the office. So very brief overview. So basically what happens is that, again, you have these white blood cells, and you've got two forms of immunity. Your innate immunity, the immunity you were born with, and your acquired immunity. So the innate immunity is very generalized. It's your general defense. It's
general defense.
General defense. So it's the one that is like when you're a baby. That's why kids get sick so much, is because they don't have they only have their general immunity, their innate immunity, until they can build up their acquired. Every time you get sick, as long as you don't die from it, it makes you stronger. And that's one of the reasons why you don't necessarily want to live in a bubble where you're never exposed to anything. And what we've been finding is that with antimicrobial soaps and stuff, aside from the hormone disruption, it's killing everything. So the kids aren't being exposed to as many germs. They're not playing in the dirt like they used to. And
Thomas, like you and I did. Roll around in the dirt.
Exactly.
Eat the dirt.
Yeah, hypoallergenic pets.
Right.
I mean, like all this stuff, if you're not going outside, if you're not going into the world and getting exposed, your acquired immunity, the immunity you create yourself through exposure, never really develops. And then maybe by the time, like for example, chickenpox. Chickenpox isn't really a big deal when you're a kid.
No,
That's
really.
why they used to do chickenpox parties. Because if you could get it, once you have it, your body's like, oh, I know what he looks like. And it knows how to identify and attack that invader later. So then when you get exposed to like your children who have chickenpox and bring it home, you don't get it again because your body knows how to fight it. But if you've never had chickenpox and you get it when you're older, it can kill you. So that's why you want to get some of these things when you're younger, when your whole body is more resilient. Mm-hmm. But so then you've got your innate immunity, which is all the cells that can then turn into other things. And then you've got your acquired immunity, which is what develops from exposure. So then what are antibodies? Antibodies are basically like the ammunition. And what happens is that when your body gets invaded and your body recognizes, oh God, that's a bad thing, it tags it with an antibody that it's created, and that tag lands on the antigen, which is like so say this is like a receptor on the cell. It'll go onto the antigen and hold on, and your body's like, oh, that's marked for destruction. We should kill it. So
marked for death.
Marked for death, exactly. So that's what antibodies do, is they mark bad guys for death. And whether it's a foreign invader or cancer cells, that's the other reason why people who are immune compromised tend to also have cancer, because you, me, Steve, everybody watching this, even the children, have cancer right now. Everyone has cancer in their bodies right now, and it's not a scary thing. It is. Right. It's just a thing.
We all have carcinogenic cells floating around in our bodies. Very few, not enough to stick, not enough to grow a tumor, but we are all fighting them all the time.
Exactly, because basically cancer is the result of a dead or dying cell replicating erroneously. Mm-hmm. It's a genetic mistake essentially, and that's one of the things your immune system is constantly doing, is it's keeping an eye out for like these sick dogs, if you will, and then putting them down. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell Lucas.
It's a farm upstate.
It's a farm upstate. Exactly. So these cells are going around hunting for cancer and hunting for bad guys. And the antibodies are what they tag them with, so then the other cells are like, go for them. Right. So if you never get exposed to something, you won't have the antibodies to tag it with, so then your body has to start from scratch. And so that's one of the reasons why people are concerned about COVID, is because it does seem to be evolving like the flu does. And so that's one of the problems with the flu, is that it changes enough every year that your old tags don't work. That's why they're trying to vaccinate people, is because their idea is that if we can get you exposed to a tiny part at a small amount of
or dead
or
inert.
dead or inert or whatever. They're trying to make it as safe as possible. They're trying to expose you to the flu. So then when your body sees it, it's like, oh, we can kill him. And then it creates the antibodies to tag it. So then when you get exposed to the flu later, you should already have the antibodies and your body should be ready to fight it. So you may still catch it, but you can fight it off better. That's the whole idea behind a vaccine.
The flu, first of all, the flu is not one disease.
No,
it's a whole category.
So many strains.
Whole category of diseases. And the flu adapts very quickly. So last year's antibodies may not work with this year's flu.
Exactly.
That's why you need to get a flu shot every year, whereas you only got a chicken pox shot once, or measles, mumps, rubella, tuberculosis. Only had to get inoculated once. Yeah. Whereas the flu changes.
Exactly. And I'm not going to get into vax, anti-vax right now, but this is where the stuff gets, this is where it gets wonky, because like polio, chicken pox, all of those things, they're not evolving as quickly. They're slower viruses. It's just the type of virus that they are. They're slower. That's why the vaccines for those things tend to be more effective, whereas the flu is less effective because it's changing so much, and then they have to guess at which of because they can only put so many types in there. So like, let's say there's 20 flus in a year. They have to choose 3 and hope that it's the 3 that most people get. So if you get strain 4, you're not protected. So that's where some of this stuff is coming from, is because they, some medical doctors is like, well, if you get vaccinated, you're immune. And it's like, well, if you get the right stuff and blah, blah, you can see how it's a little bit more complicated, right? So that's the idea behind vaccination, is to get the antibodies built up. And that's the other reason why the more exposure you have, the better off you are. Because if you're exposed to, like, let's say 10 strains of the flu, hopefully 11, 12, and 13 are kind of like 9. You know what I mean? So that's the idea behind it. But what can you do aside from that kind of stuff? Well, glad you asked. So keeping your immune system in tip-top shape is your best defense, frankly.
Yes.
Because again, whether or not they're not going to have a vaccine this year, and if they do, it's rushed.
For COVID.
For COVID, sorry.
Yeah,
for COVID-19, they are rushing it, and they're trying to make a new type of vaccine that's never been made before. So
a DNA.
A DNA one, yeah. It's not a traditional one, because the traditional type of vaccine manufacturing is slow. And we don't have time for slow, but we also don't have time for rush. As rushing science is never a good thing.
As a scientist, you know that.
Yeah. Yes, our resident scientist here.
No successful DNA. Am I right?
Yes.
No successful DNA vaccine has been produced yet. In theory.
Yeah, it works in theory. They don't actually know yet.
Theoretically, if they can make one, what it would do is attack basically change the DNA of the virus so that it becomes an inert virus. And it would be brilliant, because
it would be brilliant.
The virus would not be able to mutate.
And it would stop it basically in its tracks.
Yeah, it would just be done.
Yeah, because the way that a virus works is that it pretends Steve's a cell. So he lands on him, and he injects his DNA or RNA, the genetic strands, right into him. And then the DNA and RNA hijack the cell and all of its machinery. So then Steve starts creating more and more viruses. Yeah, instead of like enzymes or whatever he's supposed to be doing.
How am I doing?
This is exactly what it's like. So he's creating more vaccine. He's creating virus at a very high rate. And what happens is that after he reaches a threshold, he explodes.
I'm not going to explode.
Not this time. But once it gets too full, it's literally like it pops. And then that's what ends up happening. And that's the reason why viruses are so like sudden sometimes, is because one cell, it gets infected, and then it creates 100,000, and then that's 100,000 cells, and then boom. So it's exponential growth. So if you could stop it in its tracks with its DNA, you could literally stop it. But they haven't done this successfully so far, so we'll see.
It's never been successful. It's, as you can imagine, which strand in the DNA of a virus is the one that,
and it's a lot smaller than human cells, the amount of DNA, but still, it's not 5.
Right. So, but they can produce them quickly they don't work, but we can make a lot of them.
Very fast.
So,
But what has been shown to work are some supplements. There are, all of the stuff we talk about is research-based. So if you're ever interested in looking up the research, we can help point you in the right direction so you can take a look at it. But Standard Process and MediHerb, the company we've talked about before, Standard Process makes whole food supplements. MediHerb makes high-quality herbal products. So we're going to talk about a combo of all of these things.
Yep.
They all have different purposes, and again, you have to talk to your provider because you don't necessarily know which one's the best one for you, and they all are great. It just depends on what your body needs. And all of it, like I said, is based on research. So it's awesome.
Love that research. Can I define whole food supplements?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So the best way to
I pay him a lot of money.
The best way to understand whole food supplements is that they are supplements.
We have a whole food supplement down here.
Yeah, which are created from the entire part of the particular nutrient that we are trying to get into your body. They are not artificially processed out of usually organic material. For instance, vitamin B is the famous one.
Right? I know, it's famous.
Any petroleum product is made of organic material. We all learned that, right? It's dinosaurs and vegetation under compression turn into petroleum over. It takes a couple of years, a million years, right? And you get a petroleum product. So coal tar or other less valuable petroleum products that aren't used, to fuel things, can be used. You can actually isolate organic chemicals out of them, like vitamin B, for instance, and other vitamins can be. But the problem with that is what I've done is I've isolated a very, very single, one tiny molecule, and it happens to be niacin, right? But my body is not built to absorb niacin all by itself like that. The digestive tract doesn't work like that. But if I eat something that contains a high amount of vitamin B, but it also contains the necessary enzymes for breaking B down, the cofactors that go in it, a piece of bacon or liver with bacon and onions will give you a giant dose of spectrum of vitamin B.
Yeah, because it's actually called vitamin B complex.
Right.
When you start to break it down into an isolate, like niacin, your body, like Steve was saying, doesn't know what to do with it, but it's called a complex because it's complex. There's more than one part, not to mention everything else.
Don't be fooled. Often a vitamin product will say it's vitamin B complex. What they mean is they've thrown in every kind of isolated B.
Yeah, so
but that's
again,
not a complex.
That's
a collection.
Say that this is B complex. What they've done is they're like, here's B complex. This is B complex, but they've done this. Like, yeah, it's close, but it's off enough that it's basically either neutral or actually detrimental to your health.
It can be. So if you're taking, I hate to say product names like Centrum or, any commercial.
It's okay, I won't. They're garbage.
Almost all commercially.
Right, Lucas? It's garbage.
Almost all commercially available cheap vitamins are isolates like this. Whether some of them are even isolated from organic food. It's still an isolate. It still doesn't work.
Yeah, and once you start to isolate things, they are now synthetic.
Right.
And synthetic foods are bad. Yeah, we'll do even more on that later, but we've also talked about that a lot.
And not to stretch this out, but quick note, if you could get extremely high quality, fully nutritious, grown in 4 foot thick, organic, thick soil that's, virgin from the creation of the earth, you wouldn't need any of these supplements. You just eat that food. Unfortunately, that food doesn't actually exist in our food chain very much.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do a whole thing on like the history of food. It'll probably be a multi-part series later, but
it'll be thrilling.
It'll be thrilling. You guys love it. But yeah, it's the way that farming is done nowadays. They don't put the nutrition back in the soil, so it doesn't matter how well you eat if they're not fixing the soil, which is why Standard Process is great. So they grow quite a bit on their farm. I want to say that 80% of what they use is made on their own farms. Sure. I believe that's the correct percentage. I'd have to look it up because it's always getting better.
It's precisely one bunch.
So what they do is when they take over new farmland, it takes them about 5 to 7 years to convert it to functioning farmland, because the average farm at this point has less than 3 inches of topsoil. And they should have feet of topsoil, feet of topsoil. And what's happening is that with the topsoil being so small, that's where most of the nutrition is. So the plants aren't able to get the nutrition into it. So even if you eat an organic carrot, if you eat an organic carrot grown in soil that doesn't have any nutrition in it, you're going to get a meh carrot. And if anybody who starts to eat like conventional versus organic versus locally grown, you can start to taste the differences. Organic is usually a little bit safer, but organic just means they didn't use pesticides. It doesn't mean anything else that we're saying.
No chemical fertilizers or pesticides is what organic means.
Yeah, and that's in the last 5 years. So if they take conventional soil and they haven't really detoxed it, it may be organic now, but they could still be absorbing the crap from 5 years ago. Right. So organic is a little bit misleading at this point. It's better than nothing, but so that's what Standard Process does, is they convert it, and it takes years to put the topsoil back on properly. So what they do is they take these foods and so if you're trying to get vitamin A, they take all the foods that have vitamin A in it, like carrots, and basically they take, it's all cold processing, and they get all the nutrition squeezed out of it and into the liquid, and then they solidify it into tablets, and that's it. Same thing with MediHerb with the herbs, is basically they condense it down, and they have liquids and tablets, but the tablets and liquids are literally the same ones, just liquid one was the tablet. So so again, it doesn't matter how well you eat. It's very hard to eat well enough to not need help at this point. Right. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk about these today, because even if you're doing everything right, you still may need a boost. Right. So as far as where do I start? Well, we're going to talk about prevention first. So if you're looking to do prevention, so you're looking for like a daily thing to try to boost your immune system overall, not actively sick yet, you're just trying to be as healthy as possible, we have a couple of things for that. Number one is Immuplex. Don't worry, we'll put a whole list in the description below. But Immuplex is an immune multivitamin. So it is great. So if you're taking something like Catalin, which is our general multivitamin, Immuplex has Catalin in it. So if you're taking Catalin, you can discontinue it and just do the Immuplex. But the Immuplex is a full body thing. It's literally designed to nourish the thymus, the spleen, the liver, the stomach, the bones. It's got everything you need in it. So it's a great baseline. It's typically what we take. And we usually start, now's the time to start. Like if you have kids who are going back to school or maybe going back to school, this is the time to start taking these things to boost your immune system. So Immuplex is probably our number one. Number two is Epimmune. So Epimmune is a vegetarian immune multivitamin, essentially. The Immuplex is not vegetarian, because if you hang with us long enough, you're going to find out animal products are very, very good for you. And trying to stay away from them can actually be very difficult, because a lot of what you need is in animal products. Right. Especially if you talk to him, he can talk to you about all day. So Epimmune, though, is vegetarian, and it's been found by Standard Process using clinicians that Epimmune was very good actually for coronavirus, because it is a mix of mushrooms, and they're finding that mushrooms can be very helpful against coronavirus in particular. People know that mushrooms are very good for their health. They have anti-cancer benefits too, because they tend to be antioxidant. Lion's mane. Yep, lion's mane, stuff like that.
Turkey tail. There's a couple of
talk about those for a few minutes.
Well, that's pretty much, you've covered it. Lion's mane, and there's a North American mushroom called turkey tail.
Yep, and then maitake.
Yep, maitake, shiitake.
Ganoderma. Yeah. And Standard Process, we're not going to talk about Ganoderma and shiitake, but they have that too. Right. So if you want just mushrooms, but the Epimmune has Epicore, which is a proprietary nutritional yeast blend. Some studies were done, and they found that people that worked in a factory that made nutritional yeast, breathing in the fumes helped their immune system. So there's some research on the benefits of nutritional yeast, and there's more benefits than just that. Right. But then there's...
I stress here, we have to be careful sometimes. Everyone who's on the call right now, I know you're brilliant.
Yes, but for everybody else...
we did not just say that consuming any yeast is good for you. some yeasts are very bad for you.
Yes, some yeasts are very bad.
Very bad. So
but-
you want to be careful. There are particular yeasts, and again, talk to us about
So this is why you need to talk to a doctor and not just take random things.
Right.
Things can be complicated. And like, for example, if you had dysbiosis, which is irregular or dysregulation of your gut flora, if
or
you have,
God forbid, SIBO.
yeah, or candida, which is a yeast overgrowth, we wouldn't put you on Epimmune.
No.
Like we put you on Immuplex. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So you need to use your brain a little bit, and that's why you pay your doctor. So
Quick note to health lovers out there: if you're dealing with candida and you're drinking kombucha to kill your candida, stop.
it's literally
that.
insane.
Because yes, there's a lot of helpful bacteria in kombucha, but there's a ton of yeast in kombucha also. So easy.
Easy, exactly.
Easy.
We'll do more on yeast another day.
I could do 4 hours on kombucha.
Kombucha. But yes, so Epimmune has the yeast in it, but it also has a proprietary blend of maitake mushrooms, which exactly, which are, like I said, have been shown to be anti-cancer as well. So it's a great supplement, and it also has some Coriolis and other maitake mushrooms, and then calcium lactate, which we'll get into a little bit too, acerola cherries, so for a vitamin C complex, and some zinc. So it's a great overall product, and especially now, because back in people who use Standard Process, practitioners who use Standard Process, we're finding that people were testing well for Epimmune, and now we're starting to hear like, oh, well, zinc can help, and hey, zinc's in here. Who would have freaking thought? So like, you know.
I saw the results of a weird study, a very small study, only 40 people studied for about 2 weeks. And they said that a drug, I've never heard of it before, no one's ever heard of it, hydroxychloro something. The hydroxychloro something.
I hate when people call it hydroxy. It's like, no, that's like hydroxy cut. You're talking about
Yeah, it's a different thing.
hydroxychloroquine.
But someone did a study with a very small study, very short study with very few subjects. They're showing hydroxychloroquine along with massive doses of zinc seemed to help people who had contracted the coronavirus to get over it. That's a weird study because you gave people two things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is what we call confounding factors.
Which one of those things was the thing?
If you were going to do a study, what they should have done is had people who got a placebo, people who got hydroxychloroquine, people who got hydroxychloroquine and zinc, and people who got zinc. That is the only way you could do a decent
And people
study.
who got 2 placebos,
Just to even it out. That's what you need. And you need at least 30 people in a study to make a study even close to relevant. Anything less than 30, I don't even want to hear about it. And if you're going to try to do something like this, you should have probably close to 100 or more.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on how statistically significant you want it to be. Do you want anyone to take it seriously? But that's what they should have done, because when you put it together, zinc is known to boost your immune system.
Sure.
It doesn't need hydroxy to work. So.
Right.
But yeah, so but
it also not to beat this point to death, but hydroxychloroquine
I'm so sick with hydroxychloroquine.
It is an immune suppressant.
Mm-hmm.
It reduces your immune system because some diseases make your immune system overreact, and that overreaction itself can be dangerous.
It starts attacking your body and body systems.
Now to put that together with an immune booster doesn't
even makes sense.
Seem to make any kind of sense. So I don't know why you give people zinc to boost their immune system while you give them hydroxychloroquine to suppress their immune system. I don't get the logic of that. But
that's why he's not a doctor, folks.
If there was an right,
no, I'm just kidding.
No, it's okay.
Well, I mean, you're not. But
if there was efficacy in there, I would guess it's got more to do with the zinc than it does with hydroxy.
Yeah. Well, again, they're two literally competing things, so I don't see the point of what they're doing.
I'm not a doctor. I just dress like one.
I'm not that kind of doctor, but yes. So like I said, Epimmune in particular has the mushrooms everybody knows works, nutritional yeast that has studies behind it, and the zinc that has studies behind it. So those are your two like big immune multivitamins. So they're a great starting place for the average person.
And those healthy mushrooms, immune system, yes, but there's so many other things that are good for too.
Mushrooms are great for so many reasons. So it's great. But then as far as, let's talk about herbs.
I love herbs.
So Echinacea is probably the number one immune supplement that we sell that's an herb. So Echinacea is widely misunderstood because back in the 90s it got super popular, and what happened is that it got screwed. And
that's a technical term.
That's a technical term. So what ended up happening is that Echinacea has been used traditionally to help boost the immune system, and it's very, very well known that it helps. It helps to upregulate or downregulate, whatever. It's called an immune modulating herb. So it modulates it up or down. So people that have like rheumatoid arthritis, their immune systems are too up, so it helps bring them down. Whereas if my immune system's too low, it helps bring it up. So it's modulating.
It's the quarterback of your immune system, right? It's the one that sort of tells everybody. It's the thing that helps your body know what to do.
Yes, it takes about 2 weeks of taking Echinacea to get your immune system back where it needs to be, whether it's up or down. So again, now's the time to start if you're going to be doing things like this before the kids go back to school. Get the kids on this stuff too. It helps upregulate their immune systems. But Echinacea is widely misunderstood. When it got really popular, everybody tried to cash in, and because we have no regulation on supplements in this country and no real oversight, everybody and anybody was making it, and they were doing it wrong. So there's an active ingredient in Echinacea called the acyl amides. It's the active ingredient that has been linked to boosting your immune system, and it's very unstable when you extract it. So that's one of the reasons why the Echinacea product is a combination of Echinacea, 2 types of Echinacea, 2 species of it, and they help to stabilize it. But you can't just pull it out and take it. That's one of the reasons why medical science ignores it, because they can't copyright it, patent it, and sell it. But Echinacea, you have to use the root of the plant, and there's 2 species, Augustifolia and
the other one.
I'm blanking on it.
Bill.
No.
We'll call it Bill.
Purpura, Echinacea purpura and Augustifolia. Those are the 2 that have the most acyl amides, and it's in the root of the plant. If you have a different species of Echinacea other than those 2, it doesn't have as many acyl amides, period. And you do not have as many in like the flowers, the stems, the leaves, etc. It's in the roots. So what happened in the 90s is that a lot of people started to assume that Echinacea was a fraud because these companies were using the wrong species and the wrong parts of the plants, calling it Echinacea and selling it. And of course it didn't work. Why would it work? So MediHerb did a ton of research, and they are one of the only companies in the world, and they're in Australia, they're one of the only companies in the world that has a patent on an herb, because they did all the research themselves. And they don't have a patent on the herbs themselves because you're not technically allowed to patent life, Monsanto, but it's another topic. But you can't patent.
Angry all of a sudden.
I hate Monsanto. But you can't patent life. You can't patent herbs. They're plants. You didn't create the plant, but they created the combination of the 2 species in the right amounts for the ideal immune effect. So Echinacea Premium is the name of the product. It comes in a liquid and as a tablet. It's the best one the best bang for your buck if you're going to spend money on an herbal product.
For sure.
And it's fantastic. It's a little bit expensive, but that's because it's real. And if we did an experiment in the office where we bought another good Echinacea off of Amazon.
The best. Most positive reviews. We went for the best Echinacea product we could find that wasn't Standard Process.
So when you start to look at it, though, when you look at these active ingredients and you start looking at the milligrams and stuff, and you do the math on it, because it's all about math, and MediHerb's research shows that you need X number of grams or milligrams to get X effect, and so they make sure that every tablet is effective. So you only need 1 to 3 tablets a day of Echinacea to get the benefits. Whereas with this guy, you needed to take like 6 of the tablets to get what they considered a single dose. And when you did the math on it, you basically had to take the entire bottle to almost get 1 tablet of Standard Process, MediHerb's Echinacea.
Right.
So our Echinacea, I think the 120 tablet bottle cost about $100. This costs what, 30?
Yeah, but you'd have to buy 5 of them to equal
1 tablet.
Right.
So are you really saving money?
Not really.
No. If you might as well just put that money in a jar for when you go to the ER. You know, it would be more effective than wasting it on these crappy supplements.
And for anybody out there for whom this kind of information is new, if this sounds crazy, Echinacea, this part of the plant, the different species, what? Do you have aspirin in your medicine cabinet? You probably do. I don't know if you know this. It was one of the first medications ever patented by a German company, Bayer. Love our German companies, right? The active ingredient in aspirin comes from willow bark, not willow root, not willow leaves, not willow wood, willow bark. So this is not new. This is old. Same thing with
Chinese medicine is the same way. Ayurvedic medicine is the same way.
It's all the same thing. And even the Western tradition, wormwood has been used for years for stomach ailments and frankly, parasites. That's why it's called wormwood. But it's the same thing. You could eat wormwood leaves all day long if you don't use the bark extract. It's not going to do anything for you. By the way, wormwood extract is also known as absinthe.
But yeah, and to make it into another way of looking at it too, like we all know that carrots have vitamin A in them, for example. They have vitamin A because that comes from beta carotene. Beta carotene is what makes the carrot orange. So do you get vitamin A from eating the green leafy part of the carrot? No. So why would you ever think that the leaves of the Echinacea would work if it's really from the root? Same thing with like a carrot. You don't, the tops definitely have health benefits, but it's not beta carotene.
Right.
So, things have different names for a reason. So yes, the Echinacea that MediHerb makes is fantastic. It's worth the money.
Truly
and
is.
if you take nothing else but like Echinacea and Immuplex, it's usually enough as a daily preventive. But again, we'll find out what you need.
If you buy it, just put one of those Echinacea tablets, put it on your tongue and leave it there for about 30 seconds. You'll feel it working.
Yes, so it's called the tingle on your tongue. So the acyl amides, the active ingredient, when you have it in your mouth for a couple of seconds, you'll start to get a tingle. And that's one of the ways you can test it. So if you have Echinacea in your house, pause this, go get it, put it in your mouth, and see what happens. If nothing happens, then you don't have enough of this active ingredient to do anything.
If you feel nothing, that's because it does.
Well, and another thing we always say at the office is, if your supplement, if your medication, if your whatever you're putting in your mouth is 100% safe, then I know that it 100% doesn't work. Because there's no way that something works while being 100% safe. Not even water's 100% safe. You can drink too much water and kill yourself. It's your thing. Same thing with these products, and that's one of the reasons why I personally think that supplements and stuff should be a bit more regulated. Definitely more than what we have now. I don't want you to have to like go to a medical doctor to get a script or something like that. I don't think it's that bad, but people can hurt themselves when they don't do this right. So that's Immuplex, Epimmune, and Echinacea. There are great daily preventative support.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to spend too much time talking about calcium lactate and Cataplex F. We talked about them a bit when we talked about the fat, the skinny on fat. But basically, calcium is like the food for your immune system. It helps your white blood cells go after the bad guys. And what happens is that when you're low on calcium, your immune system can't work as well because the white blood cells can't go do their job. So what happens is a lot of people get a fever because their immune system's trying to ramp up, but it can't work right. And if you just take calcium lactate, it'll bring your fever right down because your fever is your body's way of telling you that you need more calcium. And calcium lactate is an ionizable form of calcium. It turns into calcium bicarbonate, which is, I'm not going to get into all the chemistry, but that's what your body needs is the bicarb. Calcium lactate is one conversion step away. Whereas like calcium carbonate, for example, is not actually absorbable. They teach you it is, but it's not. Because what happens is that say you take mineral water that has minerals in it and you boil it, what'll happen is the procedure
from Austria.
The procedure of boiling it will harden the calcium that's in it and turn it into calcium carbonate, which is also known as limestone. Is limestone absorbable, folks? I'm not going to try.
Try nibbling on some. Let me know how that goes.
Exactly. So when you take anything except calcium lactate, it's basically, there's no point. And that's why, like, if you've ever taken a calcium supplement and you notice it in your poop, it's because you didn't absorb it. You can't even break it down. So calcium is something that people tend to be deficient in because we're not getting enough through the food, which is usually in dark green leafy vegetables. Kale and stuff like that. It's not in milk. Any calcium added to milk is inabsorbable, and that's one of the reasons why those got milk commercials are gone now. drinking milk actually decreases your bone mass because of the sugar.
Oops.
But so
and we'll
that's,
talk another time. You may have mentioned it before, but taking a chemical supplement sometimes robs your body of the very nutrient you're trying to absorb. And it's very true with minerals. Very true.
very true with
The
minerals.
wrong calcium supplement is actually robbing your bones of calcium.
Right, Kitty? She
Cleo
agrees. See?
agrees.
Then we all know it's true. It's not true because I said it. It's true because Cleo
She's
said
eating
it.
vitamin F. Fish.
Yes, and you need fat in order for the calcium to go where it needs to go properly. So, right, Cleo? I know, we were gone all day.
She's complaining.
Always complaining. But yeah, so those are the best preventative that we have to offer. And again, if you have other problems, like say stomach related, we have to look into stomach issues, etc. But those are great daily preventatives. So next.
What happens, Doc, if my daily preventatives don't work and I get sick?
Well, see, that is a great question. She's over there. If you get sick, if you're acute is what we call it, when you're actually getting sick.
I think you're acute too.
So if you're acute, if you're coming down with it, there's a couple of things you can do. When you get that, oh my God, I'm getting sick feeling. Like for me, it's a tickle in my throat or a weird feeling in my left ear.
I bleed from my eyes.
It's horrifying.
Might have a cold.
Everybody has a different thing. So everybody has their I'm getting sick feeling. So that's the time when you got to start taking your acute support. So if you are interested in this kind of stuff, you need to have it on your shelf. You can't wait to get into your doctor to grab it. You got to stock up in advance. So the acute support that we use the most is Cataplex and Astragalus. They're both fan-frickin-tastic. So the Cataplex actually has a lot of calcium lactate in it because it's necessary for your white blood cells to work. So the calcium lactate is the Cataplex is fantastic, and you want to start taking it immediately. So generally, you're supposed to take about a capsule every 15 minutes. So if you hit it hard and you hit it fast at the beginning, if you can get your white blood cells and everything else, hi. If you can get a cat to come up.
I kind of, sometimes someone will come in contact with someone at the dojo. Someone will bring in a kid who's a little sniffly back before COVID when we actually saw people. Kid comes in, he's a little sniffly. When I get home, I start Cataplex.
We actually have Cataplex at the dojo and at the office. So what we do is the minute we get it, or someone even comes in saying that they have it, we'll just start pounding it. Because if you can feed your white blood cells enough to go get stuff and kill it before it replicates too far, it's weird. It's kind of like the pandemic. If you can contain it from the beginning, it's not as bad.
Anybody want a cat?
Oh, no, I love Cleo. Are you our immune class?
Cataplex Cleo.
Cataplex Cleo. I like that. But so Cataplex is fantastic, and it's our primary one for colds, flus, etc. It's good for inflammation and systemic infections too. So if you get like a cut and you're worried about it, you can take some Cataplex. So Astragalus is its herbal pair, because when you take it, you want to take some nutrition support, so you want to feed your body, and then the herbs help your body like coordinate better. So the Astragalus is the herbal equivalent to Cataplex, and it's full of Astragalus, Echinacea, and holy basil, and those things are very good for kicking butt. That's a technical term for it. So we usually take one of those like every hour, for example. So you're taking the Cataplex every 15 minutes, one capsule, and then one tablet of Astragalus. And you do that for like at least 6 hours, probably into a day or two, depending on how long you think you're, like if you can still kind of feel it, keep taking it.
Keep going. And we mentioned Echinacea because of how rare and unusual and how difficult it is to process. That's an expensive supplement, worth every penny. These two, as it turns out, are relatively affordable. These are not very expensive, which is a good thing. Yeah,
exactly. So it's but again, for us too, you have to do the calculus on your own situation. If we get sick, the good thing about working together is we work together. The downside of working together is we work together. So if we get sick, we end up having to close one or both businesses. And if I lose a day of work, I could buy 40 bottles of any of these things.
Right.
So not necessarily 40, that'd be a lot. But
as entrepreneurs, we are running businesses, and so lost hours are expensive hours. They cost a lot.
Don't problem, please.
Because we live together and because we're so snuggly. If one of us gets sick, it's almost guaranteed the other one will as well.
This is very professional.
We
Are
share.
you happy?
We share our diseases.
And our cats. This is where you want to live now?
You're going to stay here, right?
So yeah, so for us, it's cheaper to buy supplements and take them regularly.
Mm-hmm.
The most expensive supplements are the ones you buy and never use. And they only work if you take them. I know it's weird.
Comfortable?
Can you like move, please? See this? What do you think this is? Is this Cleo cam time? What are you doing? But Don will like this later. But what are you doing? But yeah, so when you look at it that way, when you reframe it, it's like, oh, and like a lot of you that have like kids and stuff like that, you might have some vacation time that you can use and some sick days you can use, but wouldn't it be more fun to use it on an actual vacation? Mm-hmm. Like I hate when I didn't work salaried ever, so I never really got vacation time, but I'd hate to use it on actually being sick.
Yeah, that's awful.
And being sick isn't fun. So, and I'm not saying we never get sick, but I do like to think that we get less frequently sick and it's not as bad when we do.
Given our exposure.
Yeah, no, it's actually
which
phenomenal.
Which is extreme.
Yes. So Cataplex and Astragalus are our two go-tos. We have bottles open at home, at the office, and at the dojo. Mm-hmm. So then Cataplex C, that's what I wanted to talk about next, because we were talking about things that you got to be careful of, and vitamin C is one of those things. So again, it's vitamin C complex. It's not just ascorbic acid, for example. Ascorbic acid has been determined by Western medicine to be the important part of vitamin C complex. It's not. Ascorbic acid is the shell that goes around the vitamin C complex. There's guts inside, essentially. And what they do is they strip the guts out, take the shells and put them in it and say, this is vitamin C. It's not. It's just ascorbic acid. And so what happens is that when you take ascorbic acid, your body will scavenge the rest of your body for the guts to make it into a complete vitamin C, which then now it's not really helpful and you pee it out. Right. So what can happen? Oh, I know. We're having the effects of the hurricane.
I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry.
I've been I haven't really seen it aside from in writing, but so we're getting some of the stuff. I think that's why she's being so needy.
Very
right now.
windy and rainy here right
She's
now.
scared.
Should be okay.
Should be okay. But yes, so
vitamin C. A note on vitamin C. Most vitamins have to come in from externally. You've got to.
They're essential, which means you must consume them. You must
consume them. Vitamin C, it is essential, but additionally, it can be synthesized a little bit in the body. The body can actually make some vitamin C for itself. But there's many more parts to it than just the ascorbic acid shell. So this is the big challenge with C, is that if you give your body a portion of the C that it needs, it will manufacture the rest of the pieces, but it draws from tissue to do that. And so it's bad for a long time. It's a problem.
Yeah, so it can make you deficient of vitamin C over time when you take the cheap, crappy C's, like Emergency and all this other stuff. I hate to name brands, but it's just so you know, like but it's anything that you like drop in water and then drink it. No, vitamin C complex is what you need. And where do you get that?
Oranges
and other foods. But you don't want to take orange juice
because it's all sugar.
And sugar feeds the bad guys, like we've talked about before. And the other problem is that, so vitamin C, when you get it from food, is actually very acid. So what happens is that a lot of people get sick because their bodies are too alkaline. You want to have your pH in balance. It needs to be certain parts in certain parts. Like your stomach is supposed to be very acidic, and then over here it needs to be less, and etc. But what happens is if you get a little too alkaline, you're going to get sick with something. It's a way for bacteria and viruses to thrive. They don't thrive in acid. That's why your stomach is acidic. So when you go to alkaline, not enough. It's a one or the other. It's on a gradient. High. The vitamin C complex, if you're eating the foods that contain C, it actually acidifies you a bit. So it'll help kill anything that's living there, and it's also a preventative.
Right.
So that's one of the benefits of it. But when you drink orange juice, the sugar and the incompleteness and everything else is actually a little bit more alkaline. So that's why you can actually make yourself more alkaline when you drink like OJ and stuff like that when you're sick. So stay away from fruit juices, first of all in general, but especially when you're sick.
I don't want to derail us, but we're going to have to do weird things people think are healthy, and making the body more alkaline than it wants to be is a thing. It's a trend.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, and I used to think it was a good thing before I started learning more.
A lot of people. I was sold on this. I bought, again, we don't like to use brand names, but I owned a Kangen water machine that produces extremely alkaline water, and drank it by the gallon. You know, I make sure I'm hydrated. I drink gallons and gallons of it. It's funny, you do, like a lot of things, they will make you feel better in the short term, because it probably helps to flush out toxins and stuff like that. But I noticed that along with that, joint pain was from rheumatoid arthritis was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Turns out I had alkalized my body so much that it was the natural pH balance in my soft tissues was off badly, and that causes a lot of discomfort. Once I started to use a couple, not the products we're talking about now, but like
the
phosphate liquid, to increase my pH. Decrease. Excuse me. It always confuses me. It's decreased the pH.
He increased his acidity by decreasing his pH.
Decreased my pH. A lot of my joint pain was reduced by doing that. Your body regulates its own pH. Eat normally.
Yeah, just don't mess with your body. It's smarter than all of us.
It really is. It really is.
But yeah, and that's one of the things is that because I'm not huge into the acid ash theory stuff and the alkaline ash, but it's, you know, like if you eat foods that alkalize you, it will change your blood pH a little bit, and it's only a little bit, because if you go too much, you will die. But well, I know, it's terrifying, Kitty. But yeah, so vitamin C, eat real C, not crap. So don't take emergency, take airborne. None of that stuff. It's all ascorbic acid, and you can look at it, look at the labels and stuff, and see what it says. So if they say ascorbic acid, then vitamin C in parentheses, because they're trying to inform you that that's what they think it is. They're wrong. So the Cataplex C that we sell is made from actual food that contains vitamin C, so then you can absorb it, and it's just great. So that's the C. As far as zinc goes, we have like zinc liver chelate, so we do have zinc products. But again, most people don't need to like supplement with zinc like that. If you're having a zinc issue, you probably have a different issue that needs to be corrected. So I'm not going to spend too much time on zinc, but don't take regular, like, again, if there's like an emergent zinc equivalent, stop.
There are, and there's a lot of lozenges. You can do zinc lozenges.
Yeah.
Zinc is a trace mineral. Your body needs only tiny, tiny little amounts of it. And over-consuming zinc is not really that good for you.
Over-consuming any minerals. Again, minerals are generally, like vitamins, you have a little bit more leeway because your body can scavenge and put them together. But minerals, when one mineral goes out of balance, it will affect at least one more, probably more than one more. So when zinc goes out of balance, other things like copper can go out of balance.
Sure.
And same like magnesium and calcium, they can go out of balance. And then that affects iron, and then
I remember reading a study about the effects of overconsumption. A lot of guys are concerned about testosterone as they get older, and zinc is the male mineral, right? Zinc will help. There are products out there that are meant to help you boost your testosterone that contain a ton of zinc. ZMA, zinc, magnesium, and something that begins with A. I forget what the A is. I forget what the A is, but it is a very popular product. But the problem is that while you're boosting your zinc, you are reducing selenium, which is also necessary for the production of testosterone. So the best thing to do is just nibble on rocks.
That's exactly right. Yeah, no, it's all about balance, and that's one of the reasons, again, that we go with like standard process, because when you take like the calcium lactate, it has some magnesium in it in the appropriate ratio for your body, because nature created things and our bodies evolved to eat them. So our bodies want the ratios found in nature. And that's one of the things is like when you take just calcium, for example, and no magnesium, you're going to boost your calcium way higher than your magnesium, and et cetera, et cetera. So minerals in particular, you got to be careful of. Right. So then we're going to switch back to Cataplex Acp. So this one has vitamin A complex, vitamin C complex, and what they call extra P or rutin factor. We're not going into that. Just know that it's good for capillary fragility. So like vitamin C, the scurvy, when they bleed from their gums, it's because they don't have enough to keep their blood vessels healthy. Right. So, oops.
Lost.
Uh-oh. We lost our screen.
You ran out of power?
Yes, I'm on low power mode. Do we have a thing?
Yeah, right there.
All right.
We're back.
We're going to cut this out, Thomas. Don't worry.
We lost power.
I'll edit it. Yeah. All right. So is that roughly the same spot?
Yeah, you're good.
There we go. We forgot to plug it in. We were too excited. All right.
Happy to see you.
Yes. All right. So then
vitamin C deficiency.
Let me keep going. This way I can cut it because I was talking. So extra P factor or rutin, which we're not going to go into, is for healthy blood vessels. And when your blood vessels aren't healthy, things like your gums will bleed, and that's what scurvy is.
Scurvy.
So
that's it. Scurvy.
Scurvy.
Yeah, the capillary walls collapse and you can bleed through tissues. It usually starts with gums. But like I said earlier, I bleed through the eyes. So.
That's his thing. Yeah, so like then that's the other reason why it's better to talk to a doctor, because we have Cataplex AC, Cataplex C, Cataplex Acp, and they all do slightly different things, and what you need may be different from what we need, etc. So those are those guys. So then getting away from vitamins, we're going to get more into some stuff you've probably never heard of. So one of them.
Thomas, have you ever heard of any of this?
No, that's okay. So Thymex is another great one. So Thymex helps to boost your thymus gland, the one we were talking about earlier.
You said something about the thymus gland earlier.
Right. So the thymus gland needs to produce the lymphocytes, the white blood cells, to be able to fight everything. Where did she go? And Thymex helps promote the phagocytes, so the ones that eat stuff. Oh, Lucas, look, there's a Cleo. Oh, you coming up again? Come say hi to Lucas. Oh.
Cleo.
Lucas. Oh, Cleo Cam. What a good girl. She's rubbing her face all over me. Like, you're my mama now. Stop going and seeing other people. Oh, you're a good girl. So Thymex is great for increasing your immune system function in the short term. It helps to decongest the lymph fluid, which builds up with the dead bodies of your fallen foes, aka the invaders. That's one of the reasons why, like, your nose runs and stuff. You're literally getting rid of the bad things that have died in your body. So that's why you don't necessarily want to use decongestant medications, because if you dry yourself up, you're not getting rid of the bodies. You're supposed to be draining. It's a good thing. So the more you take that kind of stuff, the longer you may be sick because you're not clearing properly. So so Thymex is great, and it's a great defense against bacterial and viral infections because it stimulates the whole thymus response. So Thymex is great. Astragalus is another great one. He's used more for people that have been recovering from chronic illness or significant immune challenges, like people who have had cancer and stuff like that, or surgeries. So it's great for people that have been on that, or like antibiotics, or have had a lot of viruses like mono. So Astragalus is a little bit more like oomph. It's stronger than the Echinacea, if you will, and it helps to like basically rebuild your immune system. So if you're chronically ill, chronically deficient, or having any of those other things we talked about, it's something that you may need to consider. And then the last product I wanted to talk about tonight is Viranon. So Viranon is awesome.
Guess what Viranon does?
Viranon is a combo of herbs that are very antiviral, traditionally, like St. John's wort and thuja and licorice. And so I've got a foot. We can also use cat feet, Cleo. Now what? But so Viranon is specifically made with antiviral herbs. So this, along with Epimune and Cataplex AC and ACP and Immuplex, Echinacea, everything sold out when the pandemic started.
Right.
Especially the Viranon, and it took a while to come back in, and I stocked up. just in case.
We've got it.
We've got it. We've got like 2 bottles at home just for us, because we're ready. And it's traditionally used for viruses, all these things, and it's very, very effective. It's part of a lot of the like Lyme disease and other hidden pathogen protocols because it goes after these bad guys. So there you go. So you can see now, if you thought at the beginning that you didn't need help, now you know you need help. You know. So again, talk to your doctor. Have them do whatever they do to evaluate you to see what would be the best thing for you. Because what you need and what I need and what Cleo needs, I don't need cat butt though. What everybody here needs is a little bit different, and they need to figure out what you need in particular. So, because I can talk all day about products, but what you need may not even be on this list. There's more things, and I shortened this list. Goodbye, Cleo. So,
and our approach at the practice is we absolutely, as you can tell, are believers in these products. We use them ourselves. Yes.
Yes.
We use them. Look at down there.
She was itching herself, so I moved out of the way.
We use them ourselves. We believe in them strongly, but we also believe that the body will heal itself if given a chance. So we try to interfere with that process as little as possible. Give it only the support that it needs when it needs it.
Yeah, and you know, there's definitely a time and place for Western medicine. Like, if I had a fever I really couldn't break, maybe I would go and get checked out.
Sure.
Yeah, I would start with the personally, I'd start with the calcium, but I know what I'm doing. But it has a time and a place. Like if I broke my arm, I would go in and get it set.
We don't have a supplemented broken arm.
Not yet, but I have stuff to break a bone, how to fix it.
We can help it mend faster for sure.
Yeah, but we take a very holistic view, so that's why it's not as simple as like, oh, we'll just take elderberry or just take vitamin C or zinc or whatever. As you can see, it's way more complicated, and people that use these, I don't know how to describe it, but anybody who uses this kind of stuff regularly could be causing bigger health problems, and they just don't realize it yet. You know, like people that take too much calcium, if they are absorbing it, they're absorbing less absorbable stuff. They can give themselves kidney stones. You know what I mean? Like it's not like these things have no side effects. So you got to be a little bit careful, and there's no one size fits all. And anybody who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something. So like for example, we had somebody who asked us like, well, what about a 1-day liver cleanse? And I was like, do you want to have gastric distress all day? Like, first of all, I don't see how even in theory that's a good idea. Right. But second of all, it's probably just a bunch of caffeine and milk thistle. But and we sell those kinds of things, but like the milk thistle, but it's not, you don't use it that way. It's not what's supposed to happen. So like Steve said, we're not trying to interfere with the body's processes. We're supposed to support them and enhance them. We're not trying to totally like hardwire it, you know?
That we should do an episode on liver cleansing and what that means, because there's a lot of misconceptions about
or just cleanses in general.
Yeah.
But that's another reason why people say do a liver cleanse for your health, because like we talked about at the beginning, bringing it full circle, your immune system also includes like your liver. Because if your liver can't detox and get things out of here, it's going to make your whole body a toxic wasteland essentially, and then it's easier for these things to come in.
Toxic wasteland. Temple. My body's a temple
of toxic waste. Exactly. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that you learned some things, and we will be doing more on a lot of these topics we talked about. We are doing our last immune boosting webinar next week. It's going to be on exercise and immunity, so that's going to be Steve.
I get the star in that show.
Exactly. Yes, today was heavy with me because I'm the one who does all the supplements in the office. But he's going to be the star of the show next time. So next Tuesday at 7.
Yep.
And then what we're going to be doing after we do the immune boosting webinars, we're going to be transitioning straight to the Doc and Hanshi channel. We're not going to be doing the long series anymore. We're going to be focusing more on short clips, and we'll probably do some like multifaceted stuff, but they're all going to be shorter, more digestible clips, and we'll be going into stuff like this.
Did you get it? More digestible?
Oh, I never do these puns on purpose.
Yes. So for mine, Nick, we'll send a little notice to all of our fans and friends. For mine, I'm not going to kill you. I promise. I'm not going to.
He is going to make you exercise now.
But there's no point in I don't talk about exercise. I do it, and we will tell you why physical movement will help make you healthier. And I'll show you some very, very simple things that no matter what fitness level you're at can help you to boost your immune system with a little bit of physical movement and breathing. But that's I don't want to tell you too much. I'm going to keep the surprise.
Yeah. It doesn't take much, and you can do it.
Right, but if you're tuning in, be prepared to move a little bit. Don't come dressed in your tuxedo, Thomas.
Or Thomas. Leave Thomas alone. He sat through this whole thing.
Yes, he did.
Well,
yes, he did.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Lucas. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it.
Good night. We'll see you guys. See you soon.